Um, Wanted to take a few minutes and talk a little bit about vision impairment. For those of you who haven't been paying attention or don't notice, or this is your first time here or whatever, I am legally blind. I'm not totally blind, and there are many different ways of being blind, which I had no idea about until I lost most of my vision. But basically, you've got totally blind, you've got functionally blind, and then low vision, which I'm low vision. Totally blind is pretty clear what it is. You're totally blind. Functionally blind, maybe you have light and color sensitivity or something like that, but there's no functional vision there. And then legally blind runs a gamut from so many different things. I mean, in my case, I have 1 degree essential vision, just a little tiny hole that I see in the world. That my glasses actually do correct to 20/20, so I can read, which is no small deal. I have one other friend that is the same way. Um, then there's other ways where there's ways to be legally blind and still be able to drive. I'm not one of them. I wish I was. The not driving took me a full year to get over. Now I'm kind of over it because I realized how expensive driving is these days. Um, so I wanted to take a minute though and talk about sighted guide as well, because you may run into, or you may have a blind person in your life. You may run into a blind person somewhere. When I was teaching a support group at Braille, I always made the point that when I teach someone how to properly do sighted guide, 3 years from now, you may run into them and then they'll know what they're doing. And vice versa as well, because we're all kind of ambassadors for each other. Um, Proper way to do sighted guide. I, as a blind person, will hold my hand out, wait for you. You'll give me your arm and you lead me. Don't grab my arm and try to pull me. It doesn't work that way at all. Um, and from there, it's pretty intuitive. Don't walk me into stuff. And pay attention that you're now wider than you were. But the whole point is just let me take your arm. You lead. I'll follow. It's all good. Got a couple of stories about sighted guide. In my first year, these are all in my first year of blindness. Um, a friend from high school was in town, and we went out to an event. And as we were leaving, I reached out to grab her arm. And what I heard back was, "What are you doing?" "I don't know. What am I doing?" "That's not my arm." Oh shit. Okay. I had a handful of boob. And all I was left with was, well, any boob that I mistake for an arm's a nice boob. And, and it was, you know who you are. Um, but that's been a funny story for me. I had an ex that when I first lost my vision came back not as a romantic thing, but as a support thing. And she loved walking me into walls and shit. And would just say, "Oh, I thought you saw that." "What am I doing on your arm then?" "I don't know." It wasn't once, it wasn't twice, it was often. And then there's another person that does sighted guide for me sometimes, not a lot, but sometimes, um, who tells me everything going on. I mean, way more than I need to know. This came about because she was telling me nothing, and I was not knowing curbs and stairs and stuff were coming, and it wasn't okay. I would rather have her tell me too much than not enough, to be sure. Um, the proper way, again, I will take your arm. Don't take my arm and try to drag me. It doesn't work that way. I will take your arm. I will follow probably about 45 degrees behind, and you just walk. It's all good. Pay attention that you're now wider, and in my case, considerably wider, and don't walk me into stuff like the aforementioned X. But it's really not that difficult once you know. And I don't say that for me, but you may well run into a visually impaired person sometime in your life, and now you know how to do it. It's not that difficult, but people just can't wrap their heads around it. The next person that grabs me and tries to pull me, it's not going to be pretty, because that's not the way it's done. Another thing, we're blind. We're not deaf. Unless we're deaf too. I mean, that exists. But as a general rule, we can hear you. You don't have to yell. And it's kind of weird when people start talking really loud because they've got a blind person. That's not necessary. And it's way more common than you would know. Now, the thing that we don't have is I was amazed at how much of social interaction is actually visual. Visual cues and facial expressions and all sorts of different things. You just don't get it. Because why would you? You can't see it. Or I can't see it, or we can't see it. But we can hear you. It's okay. You don't, unless we're deaf too, and that's a whole other thing. But you don't have to yell at us. Yeah, you may need to get our attention if you're just starting a conversation, because it's not obvious always that you're talking to us, or it's not obvious to me that you're talking to me, until we get a conversation, and then it's fine. One thing though, do get our attention, because it's easy. I mean, I've been in bars and restaurants and stuff, and someone's talking to me, and I have no idea they're talking to me. Once the conversation started, it's fine. But I mean, I don't answer everything I hear, because it's usually, especially in public places, usually not directed at me. There's kind of a myth out there that blind people hear better, and there is something to that. When I first started attending Braille in the orientation session, about the second or third day I was there, I asked the question, okay, I was newly blind, when does the really good hearing start? And the answer was laughter at me, because no, Ken, that doesn't just happen, you have to work at it. And that's true. Now, there was a period of time where I could sit in a crowded restaurant or a bar or whatever and hear every conversation except the one I was having. So that was a challenge, and I did have to learn to tune other things out that were not relevant to what was going on. But for the most part, it's not necessary to yell. It just isn't. Do get our attention verbally though, because again, the visual isn't there. Even for me, I'm probably not going to see you unless I'm trying to see you. And so like a waiter walking up to a table, yeah, it's worthless. Say something. And anything almost, except for something rude. But just announce yourself, and we're good from there. I mean, again, we're blind. We're not deaf. We're not stupid. We just don't see very well, or some of us at all. There's also a terminology issue that I had with it, Braille. The proper way, according to Braille Institute, to refer to us is people who are blind. Because we're people first. We're not blind people. We're people who are blind. Well, that one didn't go over very well with my smart ass. And so it wasn't blind people for me. We're blindies. And that's kind of an affectionate way for me to do it. And also kind of a way for me to stick my finger in the eye of the establishment. Which I do sometimes. It's not like it's any big deal, but no, I refer to us as blindies. I refer to myself as a blindie. It's affectionate. It's not politically correct, though.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Think I can make it now, the pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Here is a rainbow I've been praying for. Give me a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Give me a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. Be good humans.